Welcome to the Helping Families Be Happy podcast, where we explore the often messy world of family, love, and relationships. I'm your host for this podcast, Adina Oberman, a mom, former preschool teacher, picture book lover, and member of the Familius marketing team. I'm also the creator of Big Books for Little Hands, a site dedicated to connecting parents and teachers with the best books for the ups and downs of life with kids. We welcome today's guest, Carol Gerber. Poet and author Carol Gerber has written 16 picture books, 3 chapter books, and more than 100 elementary science and reading texts for major publishers. One of her picture books, A Band of Babies, was named a 2017 Best Book for Children by Amazon editors. A Tree for Me from Familius was commended by the Children's Book Council. Carol has written other books about trees, including Leaf Jumpers, Charles Ridge Press, 2006, which is still in print. She holds a BS in English Education and an MA in Journalism from Ohio State, and has taught middle school and high school English, as well as college news writing and factual writing at OSU. You can learn more at www.carolgerber.com. Welcome, Carol. It's so lovely to have you.
Thank you.
This episode aligns with the Familius habits, read together and learn together. You can learn more about the Familius 10 habits of happy families by going to the Habit Hub blog on familius.com. Carol, we're so excited to have you here today because your latest book, A Tree for Me, is absolutely beautiful and it's being loved by so many readers. So I wanted to ask how that story came to be. Where did the idea come from? And if you can tell us a little bit about how that idea for A Tree for Me went from an idea in your head to an actual physical book that you can hold in your hand.
Well, A Tree for Me, which I'm going to hold up. There it is.
So beautiful.
Yes, and I love the illustrations. I love that this book is taller and more narrow than most picture books. And I don't know who decided that, whether that was the illustrator or the designer, but it just clears a typical shelf by about 2 inches. Because when I saw it, I thought, oh no, they're not going to be able to put it in the shelves at libraries. But it does fit. And I thought maybe the illustrator decided to do it this way because it's taller and it's going to stand out like a tall tree. Let's see. Back me up and have me. Where I got the idea is that I had written 3 other books about trees, one of which Leaf Jumpers is still in print 25 years later. It's been hardback, soft cover, all sorts of every option you can do on a tree on a book, and it's still in print. So I love that, and I'm hoping that A Tree for Me does the same. Actually, and this doesn't happen very often, but Christopher asked me if I'd be interested in writing a book about trees because I guess he saw my other books. I mean, he's very good about talking back and forth with the writers. And we worked well together, and I do my best not to be difficult. So he must have thought I would be easy to work with again. And he didn't give me a lot of hints about what he wanted. He said, just think about it. So I was, as a person who has young grandchildren that I read to, I read a lot of books because of them, but also because I'm a writer. I wanted to make the main character a boy and have a father be in the book because so many picture books are about either whole families or mothers with their children. So I thought this might be appealing when families are picking up books for the dad to say, I want to read this one. And the cover clearly shows a father with his son. So that was helpful.
So it sounds like trees and nature are a big inspiration for you with your work and your writing.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I for several years, I can't put a number on it, but I was a nature guide, a volunteer nature guide, at a 200-acre nature preserve, which is big, in Ohio, where I used to live. And I would take kids on walks weekly as a volunteer, a couple of hour walks. And they liked me for two reasons. I always had snacks. Not all the guides had snacks, but also I tried to engage them. And when we would see trees and I'd tell them about certain trees, they would feel the bark. If they weren't too heavy, I would lift them up so they could pick a leaf from the tree. And I try to make it very interactive. And so that fostered my interest in writing about trees.
That sounds like such a magical experience, having a nature guide who engages with you, not only with snacks, but will also, pick you up and let you reach that perfect looking leaf off of the tree. Mm-hmm. That what an interactive and magical experience for a child. And so in thinking about your time as a nature guide and working with children and writing for children, it makes me think that you probably have had some ideas in your head about what you wanted readers to take away from this book as you were writing. So what do you hope people will take away or feel after reading A Tree for Me?
Well, one thing beyond the subject matter is how important it is for parents to spend time with their children and to do things together that the kids aren't going, I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that. And to make it an interactive experience and a learning experience. And one thing, when I did these school trips, there would be a teacher or two, depending on the size. But I would interact with the kids. And one of the things that they loved, which had nothing to do with trees, was they got to climb a farm fence, the kind with the big slats. Instead of opening the door, I would say, well, I can do this. And if you need a boost, I can help. And I'd put them over. So I think kids left the experience of learning about trees, also learning about themselves. And then I would have an art activity. Usually it was, put the leaf down and sketch over the front of it and then do the back. And then we'd look at it and I'd say, see the little veins there? You have veins in your body, and this tree keeps these leaves alive with the nutrients that it sends to the veins. So it was lots and lots of fun to do then. Yeah.
So you're hoping that families will be inspired and encouraged to go out as a family in nature and have these very, very meaningful experiences, it sounds like.
Yeah, more so than what, and I have no problem with parents taking their kids to the movies, even though the tickets are like $10 a piece now, and doing those kinds of things. But that's not really very interactive. You're sitting side by side the whole time, and you may talk about it afterwards. But going out in nature and even learning together, would keep a little, not a very big paperback of trees so we could look some things up about the trees. And if the kids were old enough to read, none of them were shy about, well, who'd like to read about this? What would you think about this? So I try to keep them engaged with that. And then, of course, I never told them about the snacks until the end.
That's very key, or else you'll only get as far as the snack will take you. I love that, and I'm picturing what a nature walk with a book about trees would entail. Um, we have done in our house, we've done a lot of nature walks, particularly during the pandemic when we had to keep to ourselves. And I always found that spending that time in nature really was just such a different experience, even than sitting on the floor and playing with toys. And both are important experiences and provide their own, really rich, learning experiences and developmental experiences. Um, but I can remember pointing out the different types of trees with my kids and explaining to them that a sassafras tree has three completely different kinds of leaves, including a leaf that looks like a ghost. And they just thought
Yeah.
that was the most incredible thing. And to this day, they will still see, if they are paying attention and they see a sassafras leaf that looks like a ghost, they'll go, Mom, a ghost leaf. And I mean, talk about leaving an impact, right? You're recalling
Yes.
this one very specific memory from years ago. So um I think that your book and your work is really such a good reminder of how important that time and those connections are. So can you tell us a little bit about what is coming up next for you? Because you have quite a library of work that you have created. So what's coming up next?
What's coming up next is another book from Familius, which, do you know about that book?
Tell us more.
You tell me more. I'm looking around to find my talking points on that book.
So
There's many books, they start to merge together.
I am very excited to share that Carol is working with Familius on a book called Venus Flytrap,
Yes.
which we're very excited about. So can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes. Well, the interesting thing about Venus Flytrap is, and people always say, where do you get your ideas? And, ideas are all around us. Some just seize you, Seize. And I learned about Venus Flytrap, and I have ordered a Venus Flytrap. But one thing that got me is I now live in South Carolina, and the biggest, and I have friends who live in North Carolina, and the Venus flytrap is native to 100-mile strip in North Carolina. Isn't that odd that it would only grow in the wild? It actually is a plant that grew in the wild. In that part of the land. And then I read all this other stuff up on Venus flytraps. How am I going to do this? Well, why not let Venus tell her story? And young children do become attached to the little critters that sometimes elementary school teachers have in their classrooms, or plants. And I've never taught elementary school, but I visited lots of elementary schools. And I thought, well, they're not going to meet her in the wild unless someone takes her, but let's have the plant that the teacher will share and allow children to learn about her as they take care of her. And I don't think of all plants as females, but Venus is definitely a female.
Venus is quite a character, and I'm really excited for all of our listeners and all of our readers to meet her and read Venus Flytrap.
Yes.
As we begin to wind down, I want to remind our listeners how they can find you. So can you remind us your website and how they can find you online?
Well, like most people with websites, I wisely call my website after my own name, and that's www.carolgerber.com. Carol has an E on the end. And you can also, just to find out about me, every once in a while on the days when I think, this is frustrating, I Google myself, which sounds strange, but I'll see comments from people and I'm thinking, wow, there's some kid in California who really liked my book. And kind of makes it worthwhile to think that you're making other people happy by what it is you do for a living.
Absolutely. And with so many books and so much work that you've created, I think that you're going to continue to impact the lives of so many children for a very long time.
Oh, thanks so much. And that's thanks to public libraries too.
We love our libraries so much.
Yes. Yes.
And thank you so much for being with us today, Carol.
Thank you for inviting me.
As we conclude today's podcast, I'd like to thank Familius for their support in bringing this podcast to your ears and your heart. We'd be thrilled if you subscribe to the podcast and left us a review. And when you're ready for that next amazing book adventure, we'd be honored if you'd choose a book from Familius. One step at a time, we can make the world a happier place.